and he scammed out of a $2,500 load, he's got a heck of a decision to make. Do I feed my family or do I buy a tire for the one that's been bald for way too long?
Welcome to This Week in Trucking, the podcast that tells you what you need to know about the trucking market for the week in 30 minutes, and sometimes more. I used to say 30 minutes or less, and sometimes good things just take time. So we might go over 30 minutes, especially because I'm here talking to the one and only Dale Prax, President and CEO of Direct Expedite. He's a freight broker with more than 25 years of experience in the industry. Thank you so much for being here, Dale.
Thank you for inviting me. We had a call about 6 months ago. I enjoyed it. It was great. I love what you guys are doing. You're not just a factoring company that says, hey, in fact, you're built. We tell you how to manage your company and give you pointers in that. And I think that is so important. I think that that's how this whole industry gets better, by not just brokers talking to carriers, shippers talking to brokers. Let's have our factoring companies talk to the people and tell them what they're learning from the other companies as far as protecting yourself and making better business decisions and all those kind of things. So I really applaud what you're doing from your standpoint to help us and all the other carriers. So it's assuring to hear that to see you doing.
That's nice to hear. That's really what Bobtail is all about. We want to put the power back into owner operators and small fleet owners' hands. That's really what it's about. And no one knows how to get paid like a factoring company.
Right? Yeah, I think that the fraud actually, although there's more people trying to fight it, the criminals are becoming better to skirt those vetting processes and things that, that they're committing this fraud, but they're getting around it because I think that too many people are putting out there, here's what they're doing wrong. So rather than just fighting fraud, we develop a playbook for bad guys or a training.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what we're looking for. Okay, I know that now. I'm going to go look somewhere else and try and get around that. It's just the harder we work, the harder they work. And that's just the reality. If you think back to when my dad was an owner operator in the 60s and 70s and 80s, the fuzz buster was a big thing, right? All the truck drivers had a fuzz buster as a radar detector. The radar detectors were out to catch the drivers speeding. So every time a new radar came out from the police, the fuzz busters made another radar detection system. When they made a new one, the cops came up. So it's the same thing with fraud. Every time we come up with a way to catch the bad guys, they're coming up with ways already to avoid that catching. So that part's becoming worse. Carrier identity, I think, is the hardest thing to track no matter what. Our identity theft, it's really hard to track that because the bad guys go out and they'll buy a MC number from somebody and say, let's say an owner operator is going to go out of business. He's been doing it for 20 years. It's done. He's just him and his truck. Got an MC number, done a great job for his customers over the years, but he's going to hang it up. And he maybe posts something on LinkedIn that says, hey, it's time for me to hang it up. I've been doing this for 20 years. The industry's been great to me. Typical LinkedIn, no harm, no foul, just putting out some information. The bad guy looks at that and says, here's an opportunity. You're going out of business. You're going to close the doors anyway. How about if I give you $25,000 and buy your MC number? But the caveat is I need the email address and your phone number. Just don't change those. We don't have to call Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. I'm just going to take it over for you, right? Now, all of a sudden, he's posing as that guy because that guy's been so successful that his customers still believe in him. They just may think that he hired somebody new to do some of their dispatching. And they keep getting loads until he just doesn't pay his carriers, doesn't pay his drive, doesn't pay anybody, double brokers the freight. And then the next one's gone buying his next MC number. It's just,
we put out a warning for carriers about that, I think back in January when we first heard about that, because not only is that really bad for the industry, but for the owner operator, I believe. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure that means that you're still legally liable for any of that fraud that's committed with your MC number.
You could be if you didn't transfer it, if you don't have a bill of sale, all these kind of things could make. And the other thing is that even if you aren't liable, you're still going to have an attorney defend you, and that becomes a retainer cost. And you're really going to be in it anyway. It's just really unfortunate and sad that. And the other thing is we have a legitimate owner operator who's moving a load for somebody, but that broker may have sold him a load or it's been double brokered by another carrier. What do you do? So if you lose $2,500, and that's my argument with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. That a lot of times you hear, we're here for safety. We're not here for security so much, but we're here for safety on the public highways. Totally important. I get it. We got to be safe. But if a driver is scammed and he owns 2 trucks or 1 truck, and he scammed out of a $2,500 load, he's got a heck of a decision to make. Do I feed my family or do I buy a tire for the one that's been bald for way too long? Now it becomes a huge safety issue. Or if
Totally.
he loses $1,000 on a load because he was scammed, does he gonna care as much about his ELD or does he got to get miles in to feed his family? And now that is a huge safety problem. And,
Absolutely.
and
I was just talking to Adam Wingfield about
oh
this
yeah.
a week ago, and he was saying we were talking about detention
Mhm.
and how much of a safety issue detention is.
Right.
Because once you've detained somebody for 9, 12 hours, even more sometimes, now you have a driver who's rushed, who's frustrated, who's sleep deprived, who's all of those things are safety
Right.
concerns. And so detention becomes a safety concern.
Yeah. And I think that everyone talks about detention, right? Detention in and of itself is not a bad thing. Not paying a guy for sitting around is a horrible thing. If
Right.
I was to go to, if my employees came into work and I said, hey, I need you to come in 5 hours early, but you got to stay 10 hours late and I can't pay you, how it doesn't make any sense. So why do we treat drivers any differently? And the other
Totally.
thing that really drives me nuts, and I'm a broker, is the guys that take detention time from their customer as a broker, and then tell the driver, "Oh, I can give you $10 an hour, or the first 2 hours are free, and then I'll give you $25." And they're making $75 an hour off of their shipper. That money belongs to the driver. That's that should be put in a constructive trust to give that money to the driver, not the carrier. That money needs to be funneled somehow to that driver with proof. We want to talk about transparency? Show me that you paid that driver his money.
So you mentioned this. We did an event, a couple of events last year on how carriers can get better loads and negotiate better rates with brokers. So
Mhm.
this was about a year ago now. You shared a lot of really great information about your experience and what you look for in a carrier that you want to work with.
Mhm.
A lot has changed in the last 12 months or so. So I wanted to go through some of the advice and information that you so generously gave carriers on that call then and see what applies still and what's changed. So, to start, can you tell us a little bit about your business and what you look for when you're booking a carrier for a load?
Sure. Our company is called Direct Expedite LLC, and we are an expedited freight broker primarily. Our trucks are sprinter vans, straight trucks, and small straight trucks. We do some tractor trailer business, but we're mostly the guys that are going to get something somewhere fast and they only need 2 or 3 pallets, but it could shut down a line. We do a lot of work in the business in the music industry. So we help our customers move guitars and amps and things like that for their customers to get to the show on time. We really primarily deal in just in time and expedited freight. As far as the carriers, we look for professionals because although we are a non-asset based company, our assets are our reputation, our people, and our drivers' reputations. So those are the things that we sell to our customer. So we look for those same qualities, culture, and sense of urgency in our carriers and their drivers. So that's what's important to us. And they should know the business. They should be in compliance with state and federal laws. They should follow all of the things that people do to be in business. And so those are the guys we look for. We don't look for, and I use this word probably way too much. We don't look for scumbag.
All right. So, how do I, as a carrier, come off as not a scumbag in your
Oh,
book?
I also own a vetting company, a carrier identity and compliance company to vet carriers. And I only started this thing because I didn't see enough good things happening. We use objective data to vet. But what I try to tell people is the first way to vet a carrier or for a carrier to vet a broker is develop a personal relationship with them. That's how you vet first. Get to know these people, find out what they're all about, do the job of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, visit their office, look in their eyes, see that they're not working out of a post office, build that relationship. Once that's done, now you can go to the vetting process. The most important thing in the vetting process, in my opinion, is to make sure they're in compliance with state and federal law. Have they lied to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration to get their authority? Are they working out of a post office box, which is a violation of the law? Are they registered in the company that they say they're registered, the state that say they're registered in? All of those legal things have to be taken care of first. If you don't trust the person after you met them, you vetted them and they're breaking the law, there's no reason to do any other further vetting. We don't care about inspections at that point. We don't care that they violated they're late for a shipment before. We don't care about any of that because they're not in compliance with the law. So that's probably the most important thing that we look for.
Yeah, you mentioned in our event last year that fraud is an $800 million problem in this industry. We were seeing enormous amounts of fraud, especially double brokering scams that cost carriers thousands of dollars on every load. How has fraud in trucking changed since last summer?
I think that the number's gone up. I think we're going to approach $1 billion. I think that the brokers and carriers are getting smarter, but in turn, so are the bad guys. So every time we learn something or we teach something to our good guys, the bad guys are using that as a playbook or a training manual to become better. The bad news is that there are some double broker companies out there that are maybe based overseas, they've got their authority illegally, they're doing things wrong, all those kind of things. But some of these people are better brokers than people here in the United States. They're just doing it illegally, but they're very good at their job. And so I've heard people say, I don't want to get rid of that guy. And I tell them, the guy's in violation of the law. He owns 15 other MC numbers. I know, but he does a good job for me. So what? If I'm a good bank robber, I'm still a bank robber.
Absolutely. Are we in a better place by any measure at all?
No, I don't think we are. I think that there are a lot of people trying to do the right thing, but I think until we get the Department of Transportation and the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration to abide by the laws that they put in place, we just had our 12th anniversary of MAP 21, Public Law 112-141, that came out on July 6th of 2012. We're in our 12th anniversary of that, and nothing has changed. We still are not vetting motor carriers or brokers for things like affiliation with other entities. The affiliation is not illegal. You look at Landstar, they have Landstar Legion, Landstar Inway, Landstar Ranger. Those affiliations are okay because they disclose them to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. When you don't disclose it, or you act like a chameleon carrier, or those sort of things, that's what the federal government needs to get better at looking at. The law is very clear. MAP 21, what's paragraph 32103, DI says that if you don't disclose it, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration can either not approve your application, or if you already approved, take it away. If they did that, we wouldn't have nearly 1% of the problems we have now. Just follow the law that's there. We're required to follow the law. So why aren't the people in registration at FMCSA required to follow their law that they wrote, that was written for them?
And it doesn't really seem like it's a technological problem. Can you talk about, you started FreightValidate.com,
Mhm.
a tool that businesses can use in the industry to check the legitimacy of carriers and brokers and look out for these red flags. What kind of information were you looking at back then to make that determination? And has it changed at all? Has it developed at all in the last year?
Back then, I was looking for principal place of business working out of a post office spot. Again, I always started looking at the law first. Are they in violation of the law? We did a lot with identity back then. We introduced facial recognition. Some carriers, some brokers, some drivers thought maybe that was a bridge too far. Even though to rent a car at Avis now online, you have to do facial recognition. I think it's something that maybe people aren't ready for yet, but I think it's something that's coming. If you look at the state of Arizona, they're using digital IDs. You carry your ID on your phone. So when you go to Walmart, your face is on the screen. It's being recorded. I don't think that biometrics is something that we need to shy away from, but we need to use it to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
I say this all the time. You can have 50 MC numbers, but you only have one face. If we can identify who you are, we're going to be able to solve a lot of these problems. My brokerage uses facial recognition on every carrier that we bring on. An owner, a CEO, or a C-suite member, or authorized verified representative needs to go through facial recognition. When the dispatcher gives us a load or bids on one of our loads, he or she goes through facial recognition verification. And the driver that gets our load goes through facial recognition verification. Why do we do that? Because we know exactly who we're dealing with. The other thing that does is a lot of people try and get by with hiding where they are. Oh, I'm in Massachusetts. No, sir, you're in Macedonia. You're just hiding behind a VPN. What facial recognition does tells me exactly where that person is within 25 feet. I know that he's here. So that eliminates two. There are sometimes the drivers or brokers may stretch the truth. That's happened to all of us. Oh, the driver's up. He's just around the block. He's an hour away. He'll be there in an hour and a half. Then after we give him the load, we find out he's 5 hours away and his truck broke down and all kinds of things happen. With facial recognition verification, we can tell with 100% certainty where the guy's standing. And because we don't give that information from his driver's license biometrics, we just tell our customer and our staff knows that he passed. There's no
Right.
biometrics, no safety, security information going out. But we do get a picture of him because he sends us a selfie. Nothing different than he posted on Facebook or LinkedIn. We send that picture to our shipper and say, this is the person that's coming to pick up your freight. If anybody other than the guy that looks like this comes to pick up your freight, call us and don't give him any freight. That eliminates a lot of it.
Wow. That sounds like a great system. And again, it doesn't seem like a technological problem. So, do you think that this is an administrative problem that the government just works too slowly on this and hasn't been able to implement this technology yet? And why isn't every freight broker doing this?
I think a lot of freight brokers aren't doing it because people are afraid to go through. There's a certain amount of people that think that by taking their biometrics, that you're big brother, you're going to get into their bank account, you do all these other kind of things. By using a third party to do that, a company similar to Clear at TSA at the airport, we will give somebody our ID so we can get faster locked in a line in the airport, but we won't give them our ID and facial recognition to protect a $100,000 loan or to protect you from getting your identity stolen. I just don't understand that part. For some, again, it's a bridge too far. I think it's going to be how the future goes. And what's the other part of your question? I'm sorry.
I just wonder why isn't every freight brokerage doing this? It's just lack of adoption by
Yeah,
carriers?
yeah. I think that the facial recognition part, that's one thing, but a lot of people can't afford another vetting process or that sort of thing. They got tires to buy and the economy's bad and they're barely making it already. So I
Right.
try and make our system very affordable, especially to owner operators. If you own one truck, you're going to pay peanuts to get this information. Not talking about the technology part of it, vetting. If I built a robot, a robotic process automation. Every day, I get a list of all the carriers that the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration approved the night before, the day before. That goes to the Federal Register. The brokers, the carriers, they're about 300 a day that they're putting into our system. My robot reads that and matches it to anybody that's working out of a virtual office, the Post Office Box, Staples, PostNet, Regis, any of those kind of places are virtual offices. You'll notify them or notify me immediately through a robot that says, hey, this person, we need to protest their authority. Send them to Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, protest this authority, they're in violation of the law. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration hasn't done anything with that since I started in October. However, my subscribers see it because I do something about it. I'm really like right now, the double checker of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. I'm really doing their job in that aspect. And frankly, I wish they would do their job right because I'd close this business down in a minute. I have other things to do. I have grandkids. I don't want to keep doing this, but I feel like I have to because I came from an industry starting at $7 an hour after I spent my time in the Marine Corps. I got a job working on a dock at $7 an hour. And this industry has been very good to me for the last 31 years. And so I want to give back to it, but I probably won't quit until the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, I can hand the baton to them to do their job and then I'll close it down. I don't think we'll see that in my lifetime. I'll probably work until I'm 100.
Yeah. Let's hope you have a nice long retirement,
Right.
Dale. Let's hope they fix this pretty soon.
Yeah.
So I see that the vast majority of new carriers are still doing something that 6 months, actually a year ago, you told them not to do on our channel, which is to use a Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, or other generic email address to run their business.
Yeah.
When you get an email from an address like that, what are you thinking?
First thing I think of is fraud. Here's something that's really important to remember. Not everyone with a Gmail address or an Outlook address or a me address or AOL, if you're that old, is a criminal. But 99.9% of people that are criminals use a Gmail address. That's unidentified. Like I said back then, go to GoDaddy, spend the $9.99, come up with a cool name and get a domain and put up a one-page website. It won't cost you very much. The other thing is you're a brand new owner operator, you're in business. You're a business owner. why not present yourself as a business owner and not be like the guys that are considered to be red flag? Erase another red flag. You're as a
Right.
brand new owner operator, you're already getting profiled. Oh, he's brand new. Don't give him any business for the first 6 months. This is another strike to take away from that. Look, I'm legitimate. Uh, Talk to me. I can prove everything about you. If a person worked at Yellow for 30 years and they got 3 million miles under their belt and they lose their job from no fault of their own, and they say, I've had it with working for the man, I'm going to start my own business. How unfair are we to say no business for 6 months, no business for a year, just because you fit into a profiling thing that we put out there as a limitation? Now, sure, some insurance companies put that onto the brokers. But let's talk to the insurance companies and explain to them why. Let's put this guy through a rigorous vetting process, almost like the new entrant audit should do, but doesn't. Let's put them through a process and get them verified so they can start hauling loads the first month. So the bad guy who's not that $3 million, 3 million mile guy, the guy who just goes gets his license is going to scam people. He is he's still a bad guy. That he's going to go get loans from maybe one of the big box guys for less money to learn how to craft his scams better, right? The funny thing that people have to understand is that after 6 months, that criminal isn't miraculously going to be a good guy. So why the limitation on the number of months before you can do it? Let's validate these guys. Let's run them through FreightValidate. Let's do a background check on them. Whatever you have to do business with somebody, but don't arbitrarily say, "Oh, you got 2 more days, then I can give you business." It's just ludicrous. Use
Yeah.
and just one other point about that.
Yeah.
If you use objective data, if you say the guy has a license, it's valid, all those kind of things, it's almost like subjective data is, I've seen that movie, it's horrible, or that movie is great. That's subjective. That can be manipulated to change somebody's mind. If you say that movie won an Oscar, that's objective. That's something happened that you can prove that happened. So by using objective data to identify a good motor carrier, a good broker, and freight forwarder, means that somebody can manipulate that data and turn a bad guy into good, a good guy into bad. And that's what we have to be away from.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the people that start factoring at Bobtail are new carriers.
Mhm.
And I feel for them every time we email somebody and we're talking about factoring or we're talking about how to get better rates or anything like that. A lot of time they're coming back to us saying, I can't even get a load. Forget a good rate. I can't even get a load. In fact, some of them are sitting on enormous insurance bills, enormous equipment bills for 3, 6 months, maybe trying to haul some for another carrier at the time, but just to age
Mhm.
their MC so that they can start hauling their own load 6 months from then.
Yeah.
That's crazy, and honestly, anybody can do that, whether you're legitimate or not.
Right.
So, yeah, it just doesn't seem like a really strong standard that's helping anybody.
And the other thing is what shippers and brokers need to understand. Companies like Bobtail follow the money, right? You're going to put these guys through underwriting. You're going to
Yeah.
check all those things. You're going to check to see if he's valid. You're going to check. He's going through underwriting, but you're not going to depend on that. You're going to make the guy wait 6 months, and you're going to use your quote unquote underwriting as how many inspections does the guy have? I can't go get a loan from a bank if I'm a broker. I can't go get a loan from a bank just by saying, "Here's my MC number. I haven't had any hits on my bond. Give me money." But an owner operator lends money to a broker. That's really what they're doing, the bank. They're lending money to a broker by saying, "I'm going to do a good job for you. I'm going to just pay me in 30 days." No credit check. No, not just come on. On the opposite side, that owner operator who's lending you his services is being vetted better than he's vetting. He'll ever vet you. He's gone through underwriting. Give me a break. You can't stop this guy from doing business. He proved who he is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are some of the things that you would say to those carriers that are new, that are coming into this business? What can they do to be proactive with their customers and make a good impression and maybe get some of those first loads?
One thing I would do is ask them to go to freightvalidate.com or come to me, and I will run them through FreightValidate. And give them kind of the green check mark seal of approval. So they can put that on their email addresses that are Gmail as their signature says, I'm a validated by FreightValidate carrier. That's going to mean something. It's like a badge of honor. I've gone through and list out the things that I put them through, what our platform puts them through. Again, it's not how many inspections you have, how long you're in business, objective. And almost submit a resume to your customer. Say, here's what I've done. Here's why I've been in business for only 6 months. Here's why I left my last company. Here's everything you need to know about me. Here's my certificate of insurance and a letter from my insurance company showing that I have not only an insurance certificate, but coverage. Then you say, here's my certificate of organization with the state of California, which matches my certificate of insurance, and my certificate from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Here's a picture of my VIN, which matches my insurance certificate, which matches my registration. I'm a legit guy. Give them a resume. Go talk. Again, it comes back to a personal relationship. Don't just been on a lid. Don't just be getting loads from a load board all the time. Find a broker in your area that you know and trust and tell them about it. Go to one of the big guys and say, or a small broker, look up a good broker. Get referrals from your friends that are owner operators that have been driving for 8 months, 8 years, and say, who do you do a lot of business with? Because I know your truck's not always going to be in Dallas. I may be in Dallas. I want to go talk to these guys and see how I can get in with them without going through a load board or some other way to put myself out there. Develop personal relationships because that word will spread. There are not as many really great drivers as you would expect. So put yourself out there, make yourself a very good driver and known as a very good driver. Put it on your website. List on your website the things that you've done and why you're a compliant carrier. Sure, I haven't been in business for 6 months, but here's what I've done in my life. I served in the Marine Corps. I have a TSA card. I've been vetted by the Transportation Security Administration or TSA with a full background check. Why does it matter that I haven't been in business for a month? Why does it matter that I have had no inspections? Let's use concrete data to prove that these are good people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I pulled something from a Facebook group we're on, and I wanted to get your reaction to it. So this was just 4 days ago. Someone said, I just received a call from an associate with a client that received a rate confirmation from a broker in Kansas. Only it wasn't one of their rate confirmations, and the contact info didn't add up. Actually, turns out it's a double brokered Amazon load that has nothing to do with that broker. I've been seeing this a lot lately, and it's all being posted on DAT. How are these companies able to hack these brokers' accounts on DAT? Have you seen this before? And what do you think what's
Wow.
happening when you listen to a story like that?
I see that it's happening more and a lot more than any of us like, especially Amazon, especially DAT, especially the customer. But you have to think a lot of people will be real quick to blame DAT or truck stop for identity theft and all those kind of things, or to not properly vetting a carrier. DAT can't take all the blame for it. Truck stop can't take all the blame for it. And I like to use the analogy of if you're going to buy a car at the Chevy dealer, there's a car sitting there. They know it's for sale. They don't know everything about that car. You go to Carfax to learn all about that car's history. Very similar to that, unless they had, or truck stop, or 123 load board, any of them, unless they have their built-in vetting processing system, they aren't Carfax. They're going to offer you a service, and now it's your job to do due diligence. If we're blaming DAT, truck stop, 123 load board, movement, any of those guys, the real blame goes to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration for letting them in the first place, right? So think of this. Think that you live in a house and your basement's flooded and you want to get the scumbags or the water out of your basement, right? What we're doing right now is taking 5-gallon buckets and vetting them and trying to throw the scum out as quick as we can. But what everybody forgot about is the hose that comes in there, the fire hoses bring the water in. If we shut that off with that fancy cool stuff at 2:00 in the morning on TV to put a plug on it, we're going to stop them from coming in. That's what the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has got to do. And that's what we're doing for our subscribers right now. We're putting that flex tape on the hose that's coming in there so we don't have to bail it out in buckets of water.
So is DAT and Truckstop going to call up FreightValidate.com and get you guys integrated
Right.
into their system?
We are talking to some folks, some onboarding people, some factoring companies, some insurance companies, and others that we are working. We've finished our APIs. We are going to integrate with some of those, and we want to
Awesome.
integrate with some of those because, again, I can start this thing to make money. I'm probably the only guy that runs a vetting company that has as much experience in transportation, has been maybe fraud and seen fraud or dealt with fraud than anybody. So I didn't do this to make money. I didn't intend on starting this thing. I did it on a dare that said I could tell you within 3 seconds if this guy is validated or not. And so I didn't make money. I did it to really make a difference. And that's, if I can integrate with anybody that wants to make a difference, that's what I'm here for. That's what I really want to do. And I don't care if truckers or owner operators or brokers or freight forwarders use another vetting platform. I'm not looking at competition with anybody. If you use somebody to stop fraud, go for it. Do it. I don't care who you use. If it's me, great. If it's one of the other guys, I don't care. Just use somebody and help stop the fraud.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dale, thank you so much for coming on This Week in Trucking. Really appreciate all of your insights, all of your wisdom from your many years of experience in this industry. And let's keep working together to eliminate fraud from this beloved industry we call home.
Yeah. And again, thank you guys at Abato for doing what you're doing, because when you are inadvertently a fraud fighter by doing underwriting, every bit of this helps us.